Namaste. If somebody would ask what is the greatest enigma in this world, so of course we can say life is an enigma, birth is an enigma, universe is an enigma, a particle, a grain of sand is an enigma, atom is an enigma. We have lost that wonder because we think we know about everything, but ask any good scientist, he will say actually we don't know. So everything is an enigma. Of course, God is an enigma. The origin of creation is an enigma. And it is so wonderful to have this sense of wonder. But one enigma which straight away we have right near us is ourselves. Man himself is the greatest of enigmas. And why he is an enigma is that in man we see two tendencies. If we really look at it honestly, we have one tendency which is skyward. All human beings, that poem of Sri Aurobindo, a tree beside the sandy river beach, holding its topmost boughs to the skies like fingers to the heaven that cannot reach. Such is the soul of man, his body and brain, hungry for earth, his heavenly flight detain. So, on one side, we have skyward tendencies. This skyward tendency can take the form of idealism, an ideal thought which we create, like a heaven. It's not found on earth, but we have created a heaven somewhere in the sky of mind. And we long to manifest it here. But on the other side, we have earthward tendencies. And this earthward tendency is not only attachment to matter, because matter itself has roots cast into the inconscient. So we are constantly as if drawn toward the inconscient. And because of that, man is a creature who lives in a perpetual state of conflict. So often when people talk about this conflict, that conflict, so in psychology we have a lot about conflict. So one of the terms that I use is that all conflicts at their bottom are evolutionary conflict. If you look at the Gita, so one will lead to the path of evolution, the other will lead to the gravitation or regression, if you want to put it. So they are all evolutionary conflict. But evolution happens through both. That's a different part altogether. So we have within us, on one side, the strength that can literally move mountains. Just look at human beings. That he is not happy just by conquering Mars. He wants to, we have already now created means to have oxygen plant before we, have on Earth. Oxygen generation in Mars has started, meaning thereby already man is thinking that, and it's quite intuitive. Some people are thinking that maybe 100, 200 years down the line, if we have to colonize Mars, what you need, like that story of the great deluge, you need a man, woman, or a few men, women, few plants. This thing, oxygen generation. Once you develop that possibility, then this life can just be transported there. Because there is water. At least there is a possibility of water. And if there is possibility of water, then you can create a whole climate. So this is the way human consciousness is thinking. Thinking of, traveling through light years, time warp, all this. On the other hand, the same human being, not somebody else, the same human being doesn't know what's going to happen the next moment of his life. The same human being will, often people are wonder, it's okay when we live at an average pitch, don't have very high aspiration. That is one kind of humanity, closer to the animal, in which you don't see this conflict. Why? Because it's living an animal life existent. Eat, drink and be merry. So you don't really feel that conflict because you have consented to be earthward. But the moment you will start climbing skyward, you will see this pull. And it becomes so difficult to understand certain human beings who on one side will have very idealistic temperament, but will have a side of personality which will be very difficult to reconcile with their own idealism. And that is called, in the language of yoga, the shadow. Sri Aurobindo and the mother speak about it. There is an exchange of letter. And Sri Aurobindo says, I have seen your letter about the evil persona. Evil persona is a term used by Carl Jung. Your letter about the evil persona is so true, and he says that I have seen that whenever there is a being, especially those with an exceptional capacity, have with them a shadow attached, which as if prevents them, keeps on obstructing them. And the mother speaks about it that yet it has been done with the wisdom. So the task of this shadow within you is to contradict and oppose what you aspire for. There is no outside person. So people who say that, I want to practice yoga, but, my family situation, my conditions, they have not started the yoga. When you actually start the yoga, you will see the whole family is inside. The family that opposes and the family that helps you is all within. And there is particularly in every human being one particular point which just will refuse to yield. It will go right till the end. It will just refuse to yield. And the day you conquer it, you are through. It is like your own special difficulty or the challenge. Of course, when the avatar comes, he also takes the shadow, but he takes the entire cosmic shadow because, that's why you see who is Ravana. Ravana is the shadow of Vishnu. So when Vishnu comes, so he has to tackle. It's a story which is about our own inner challenges. I mean, we can look at it like that. Ramayana is true, but also we can look at the shadow like that. So there is within us a part which completely opposes God's plan. And people get very frustrated. Why this? Because we have to grow in strength to reach that realization. The shadow paradoxically helps us. Let's say, for example, that somebody wants to, okay, let me take my favorite example, want to embody the power of wisdom or love. Okay, these two capacities. So he wants to embody the power of wisdom. And you will see that he makes errors. Error which to somebody else will look, how could such a person make this error? And Sri Aurobindo had a very humorous remark about this. He said, great men make great errors. They will not make small errors. It looks like error. But why? Because his wisdom now has to be perfection. It cannot be just a general wisdom. There are two types of wisdom. No, one is a wisdom which is more like jnana. The second is vijnana in every sphere of life, in these little details. So error reminds us that no, it's not, there is an imperfection, work on this. So you have worked on it. No, there is one more imperfection. And the same we can look about love. Love is all about self-giving. And a person who really wants to embody love will have within him something selfish, which will want. And the day he completely conquers that part, he will really embody true love. But he'll always have something going on till the very end. Something that wants, something that desires. And that's why, love, the opposite of love is lust. What is lust? To want, to possess, to acquire, to hold, to take. So this is the way, same with strength. How does strength develop? We can take this example, it's very easy to relate to. How does strength develop? One of the ways or the only way to develop strength is by opposing something against it. When you have no opponent, then in old time when I was a child, I was told that you want to develop your fist power. I said, yes, to hit against the wall. So I said, oh, is it? So I said, but won't you get hurt? He said, no, initially you will, but after some time you can. So I started doing it. After some time I get so much maja in it. I started enjoying hitting against the wall. My parents said, what are you doing? I said, I'm developing the strength of my muscles by hitting against the wall. And then you develop the art because that helps you to, by opposition. Imagine, can you ever become strong if there is no opposition? So strength or power in any field comes by opposition. So when we are being opposed in our path of realization means God has taken us seriously and the world has taken us seriously. But the problem is most people give up. That's why the mother says that perseverance is patience in action. So we have to get up and start 10,000 times. Every time you will see that there is a little better. Nobody will notice it. But you would have done a little better, till one day you will be through. Then the shadow is gone. Now your difficulty is gone. Others have their own. Each one has his own shadow. But what we do, we are aware of the shadow of other person, not our own. This is a primitive level of evolution. That's like we have not yet started on the journey. So we'll not talk about that. When we are only aware of everybody's shadows and we think we are all living in wonderful light. So confront the shadow, to become aware of it, to open it to the light, to give it to the grace, is one of the processes of yoga. And what prevents us from becoming aware of the shadow? This sense of right and wrong. Paradoxically, Mother speaks about it. Those who believe in too much righteousness cannot see their shadow. Why? Because it hurts. I too have some darkness inside. So they don't see it. They don't want to see it. It's very disheartening. If others say you are a bad guy, you say, "Hey, what does he know?" Or you will tell him, "What do you know about me?" But when within you experience that you have both these parts, then it can be very disheartening, especially when you keep trying again and again. But that's what yoga is about. And to the one who endures with faith, this is the victory. So we'll read a poem which reveals to us this secret truth. That how in a human being, this container, you have everything represented. And in the human body itself, you see eyes looking forward, head which can look upward. This is symbol, no? Speech which can capture sounds of the highest regions and manifest. But speech which can pick up the worst and express in speech. The heart which can cry for God, and the heart which can grow mad out of self-love. Then as you go down, you will see the animal parts, Rakshasic part, Asuric, matter, all these are there in the same human being. So in yoga, when we start doing, we are stripped bare. Like that aphorism of the gopis. You can't say, "Lord, I will wear my lungi, upper part you can bear me." He will say, no, wait. The lungi must also go. Don't do it publicly, of course. But that's what yoga is about. You become aware of what is hidden inside as the shadow, and they have to be, dealt with and worked upon. Not worked upon by us, because they are beyond any human beings. Mother says, take your share of the anti-divine. Do not walk among the holies. I am Swamiji so and so. She said, no, take your own share of the anti-divine, her word. So what do we do? She said, take it and offer it to the light with an aspiration for change. That's what we have to see. Not that, okay, I have my shadow and I must, this life. It's not that. Shadow has to be conquered. If you don't conquer the shadow, you don't evolve. But it has to be conquered by constantly acknowledging and offering to light and persevering in conquest. With our little will, little faith, to whatever extent we should fight against it. And at the same time, call in the divine aid. So this is the process. And the poem is, man, the depot of contraries. In our own being, all contraries are there. I am greater than the greatness of the seas. Man is the one who has tamed the seas. Not only tamed by crossing the oceans, tamed the energies of the sea. That is man. He can predict things about the sea. So he says, I am greater than the greatness of the sea, a swift tornado of God energy. So if the sea is a power, I am like a tornado who can, ride over the sea swiftly. See, sea sports, sea creatures diving deep into the sea, sailing over the seas, energies of sea, everything we have tamed. So this is one part of us. But at the same time, a helpless flower that quivers in the breeze, I am weaker than the reed one breaks with ease. And very strangely, you will see it in the same person. I have seen people who will surf the waves. Wonderful. Excellent. It's not a joke to surf the high waves. And one little remark from somebody they care about, and they go into depression, and they are down the dumps, and they cry. And just imagine one part which is so strong, not afraid, but another part which is so afraid, so much, emotional, so sensitive, so fragile, so vulnerable, so weak. So both things are there. Tornado. On the other hand, flower. Imagine what will flower stand if there is a tornado. Even if there's a strong breeze, the flower begins to wither. Strong sunlight, it wilts. Don't put water, it wilts. So both these aspects are there in a human being. It's not that flower is not beautiful. He's not saying that. He's giving an analogy that weakness and strength. Flower is its own beauty. So if we have to compare with a flower, we'll say, I am beautiful as the flower, but I am also a thorny. Don't touch me very close because there are thorns on my stems. People don't realize it. And they want to have the rose. So when the person gives you the rose, ask him to remove the thorns carefully. Otherwise, very eagerly you will catch the rose. I am sure almost all of us have learned this with experience. When you take a bunch of rose, first time when the thorn pricked, isn't it? And even after that you commit the mistake. You still, even today I picked up some roses and did the same mistake. I told him, nikal do. He did it. But I didn't notice that there is still a thorn or two which is left. And sure enough it pricked. So that's how it is. So the same rose, so beautiful, has, of course, that's because roses are very proud creatures. They don't like people to get near them. They are royal. They will mix only with roses. They don't like other creatures. Some background you can put jhadput. But they are not happy if you put them with... Yeah, seriously, Mother has spoken about it. And she said, they are jealous. She said one literally pricked her. Because they are like that. So, but the same beautiful rose has certain in it, those thorns. I harbour all the wisdom of the wise. In my nature of stupendous ignorance, on one side there is in me a giant ignorance. There is always an ignorance. So many things we don't know. And yet there is in man a little light of wisdom. You will see it sometime. People have done one of the wisest acts when they suddenly, have turned towards a great truth. Amalda, so beautifully when he was said that, how did you come to Mother and Sri Aurobindo? He said, I had it humorously, of course. He had many beautiful things. This is also beautiful. He said, I had a tendency to easily fall in love when I would see somebody beautiful. And one day I fell at the feet of the Divine Mother. Now look at it, like how the same tendency. So here he is saying stupendous ignorance, but a wisdom. And that wisdom saves you. That one act one day completely changes your life. So there is in us a stupendous ignorance, but at the same time a spark of wisdom which makes us do something which really is the thing to be done. Others would call it impractical. But that is when the wisdom was most active. On a flame of righteousness I fix my eyes. You see, ask anybody, I am the most honest person in the world. Everybody is the most honest. You don't know who is stealing. Everybody is honest. Honest taxpayer, honest this, honest. Everybody is honest. Self-righteous. I have never committed a crime. I have never looked at somebody with, wrong intentions or wrong eyes. All this is there. Self-righteous. Yet, on a flame of righteousness I fix my eyes while I wallow in sweet sin and join hell's dance. So Sri Aurobindo says that, every saint has a saint is somebody who cherishes his sins in secret. Because he doesn't want his, Actually, it's not that there is a sin. If you look at it from the evolutionary process, you can understand. But if you put in the concept of dualities, then you will see the contrariness. If you look at it as an evolutionary journey, there is no problem. But because we talk about opposites, so you'll see the same person. And very often people who are very righteous, they carry in themselves a tremendous darkness. So somebody who is always, I'm a virtuous man, be sure that there is inside, I never tell a lie. This is the only lie I spoke. That's how some people are. You will see that there is, so it's sometimes good to be a normal human being. Yes, I have my own weaknesses. I have my own strengths and they're all given to me. And it's a, potpourri. I'm trying to figure out how to make a nice khichdi about it, but I can't. So I've handed over my pot to the Divine Mother. The flame has been lit, and she's doing something, mixing the tadka of divine grace and, adding divine love. So I'm sure that with this jumble, something very nice will come out. So this is how we have to understand it. On a flame of, and you will see it. Typical example is Arab world. You know how they punish adultery? You can be killed. Okay? But you know what many of them do? The men, they will cross the border, do every unspeakable thing, and then come back and, they are very nice people who don't commit sin. The moment, and people who are extremely righteous, be careful. There you will see that a very big dark spot is inside, like many of the priests. And you will see it if you, I don't know whether you have studied in convent school or not, but everywhere. Priests, be careful. Priests often, will dress up like as if they are paragon of virtues. Be careful of paragon of virtues. It's cool to be normal. It's okay. There are good and bad in everybody. But wherever the mother speaks about seeing this priest in that church, Fao, where she sees that a lady came to give her confession. And when she saw him, she saw a monster sitting out there. Cold-hearted monster. And it's so true. It's not only about a particular church. Priests. Because outwardly they are one thing, but deep inside they have things which are hidden and kept inside. It becomes their nature almost to put a show and a sham. That's why it's okay, cool to be in a normal, human gathering, but very dangerous where you have all these quasi-religious things. Genuine spiritual person, yes, but all these religious places, many times you will see that atmosphere. And everywhere you see, whether it be the Blue Star and other places, many of these mosques, many temples, same thing, where the priests become themselves, harboring in themselves some of the most wicked tendencies. So, it's not that they are good or bad. It's human nature. The bad part is that you put up a show of. That's where the problem is. If you accept and acknowledge that, yes, you have everything inside you and, it's different. My mind is brilliant like a full-orbed moon. Its darkness is the caverned troglodytes. So troglodytes are those primitive cave-living creatures. So in every person who has this spiritual wisdom, still there is something which whispers like a troglodyte. And then you understand how profound some of these Indian mythological stories are. Look at the troglodyte whispering in Yudhishthir's ear, put your wife at stake, maybe you will get back. Look at the troglodyte whispering in Gautam Rishi's ears, see, your wife, sinner she is. Curse her. And he cursed her. So, this the caveman tendency, mentality. What is the caveman mentality? If you trouble him, he'll pick up his whatever was there, stone, and throw at you. So, troglodyte. In yoga, you have to confront and conquer all this. That's what the challenge of yoga is at one point of time. That's what Agastya Rishi drinks the water of the ocean, breaks open the caves, and all these. These are war with the panis. The last is with the Vritrasur. These are real events of inner life. And if one has not faced the inner battle, then one has really not faced the furnace, purifying furnace of inner life. I gather long time's wealth and squander soon. I am an epitome of opposites. So on one side I gather all the wealth and then I squander it just like that. The story of Vishwamitra. Now what makes Vishwamitra great is that he bounces back again and again and again. He had a killer inside him. He killed all of Vasishtha Rishi's son. It's a one story where you see hope. Then he again does tapasya. He wants to have the greatest powers in the world. And then he again, Menaka, and then he has that daughter Shakuntala, goes away again. Several times Vishwamitra goes through all these ups and downs, but at the end, the mantra that he brought down to earth till Sri Aurobindo upgraded it. Gayatri Mantra is attributed to him. So one has to go through. The greatness of Vishwamitra is that. Very often his story is shown as a story of fall. No. It's a story of rising from every fall and going back mightier. So this is the contrary things which are there in human nature. I with repeated life, death's sleep surprise. So death comes and says, you are done with. And man says, no, it's my body. I'll show you. I'm still living. I continue to exist. So I, with repeated life, coming back again and again, death, sleep, surprise, I am a transience of the eternities. So there is in me a part which is completely transient, a body which can be broken, the mind, formations, feelings. But still, I am a portion of the eternal. I am meant to be one with the eternities. So this is the contraries which are there in human beings, not to balance, as some people say, not darkness so that you can appreciate light, as some people say, but because this is the task given to us. We inherit, we are a double inheritance or a double birth. The soul in us is a skyward being which has fallen from the skies. So we have skyward tendencies, it always remembers God. And we have matter within us and things based on matter which are emerging from the earth. So because of the pull of the matter, there is downward tendencies. A limitless, a limited nature with a limitless soul. That's how Sri Aurobindo puts it. And this is the challenge given us to solve. So those who say, no, leave this, joki tyon dhardini chadariya, and I'll go into other world, have missed the whole point. The whole point is that this double nature in man, again double nature, one nature which is formed because of the inconscient, and the other nature which is the inherited, our true nature, the divine nature, and this tussle within, and the conquest of the truth over falsehood, the conquest of light over darkness, that is the real work of man, of immortality over death. And that is what the yoga of transformation is about. And when we can transform this, very often people talk about world transformation and all that. Please, that's a task which I'm sure the Divine Mother knows and she is undertaking. What will happen to India? What will happen to the world? There is somebody looking after that. But what will happen to me? Think about that. Within us, we have these contraries, and they are given to us with a purpose. That opposition and challenge is there to help the realization become more perfect. If there was no opposition, the realization also will be very limited. Rama without Ravana will be a very limited Ravana. Good person. Very nice human being. But when Rama faces Ravana and Ravana has abducted Sita and he goes through that great battle, then we see the one thing Rama is known for, emerge. Rama is not known for other things, but when you think of Rama, you think of only one thing, which Sri Krishna says in the Gita. I am Paurush. What is Paurush of a man? Purusha. Paurusha. Strength, love and wisdom. The triumvirate of man's manhood. You see that in Rama. Strength would not come. Wisdom would not come. When Janki is abducted, he could have just lost his mind and just, said, what is the use of life? Become a cynic, disillusioned, taken to sannyas. But his wisdom tells him, no, he's here to fulfill for a work. Love, that if a person has kidnapped her, I will go and snatch her from the jaws of death. So this is how we have to understand the opposition and the challenge is not because God is, deliberately wants to put spokes in the wheels. And if it seems like spokes in the wheels, it is because He wants us to become perfect in driving the vehicle that we are using. So that's how we know we all grow up. So when parents, they teach us how to ride a cycle, how do? They say that we are holding you from behind, but they have quietly let out the hand. We fall sometimes. When we have fallen once, then they say, now you have learnt. Isn't it? Everybody learns like that. So it's not that they were cruel, because they know that one day the child has to go through it. Then after that we have become stronger, more confident. So when we face the challenge of oppositions within us, it's by facing it that not only we grow, the realization become very perfect because of the opposition when we leave. Otherwise, too soon we will go and we'll abandon earth nature. That's very easy. Oh, all this is dark, all this, I don't want to work here. That's what a misguided mysticism has done. Illusionism, oh, this is too bad, too horrible. But we entered precisely into this region to change it into a beautiful garden of God. So, who is the original person who knows about the original plan? Is the soul within us. So, it has come into this material mind body life complex where darkness abounds, particularly the physical matter. And what we have to do is we have to slowly win over one part after another to the light. That's how the yoga proceeds. One part of the mind, something of the deeper heart, something of the life, deeper life, and slowly you have the army of light. Then there is the final assault. So, Uri, the surgical strike. So this is the process, and we'll read this. It's a beautiful poem to remember. Man, the depot of contraries, I am greater than the greatness of the seas, a swift tornado of God energy, a helpless flower that quivers in the breeze. I am weaker than the reed one breaks with ease. I harbour all the wisdom of the wise in my nature of stupendous ignorance. On a flame of righteousness I fix my eyes, while I wallow in sweet sin and join hell's dance. My mind is brilliant like a full-orbed moon. Its darkness is the caverned troglodytes. I gather long time's wealth and squander soon. I am an epitome of opposites. This is not to justify them, this is just an observation. And what is to be done with it, we have already spoken about. I, with repeated life, death, sleep, surprise, I am a transience of the eternities. And this is true of all of us. Some are aware, some are not aware. Those who live only in the darkness won't understand because where is light? This life. It is only those who start journeying toward the light confront the darkness. So if one is not facing any conflict inside, that means still I am in that comfort zone of the darkness. The evolutionary conflict has not yet started. If the conflict has started, that means now I am being pulled upward with one hand of God while kept downwards with other hand of God. As Sri Aurobindo says. So what we have to do? We have to be with that hand of God which is pulling us upward. And tell Him that you have to take care of this. And if you do it, in their final reconciliation, they can only be reconciled through transformation. You cannot reconcile light and darkness unless darkness is transformed into light. And it has its own energies inside which are needed. So in their final reconciliation through transformation lies the solution to the riddle called man. And how can it be reconciled? In one line, Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri, our life is a paradox with God for key. You have to change these human elements into their divine equivalent. Namaste.